So thanks, everybody. We're here to talk about modernizing data management with data virtualization as powered by Denodo. This is obviously a huge topic. I just want to really quickly summarize what this talk isn't. We're not going to go into, it's not a technical talk about how Denodo works or how data virtualization works. It's really about some key concepts of how to apply this new technology, this platform, to the central challenges of data management. Before we get all to that onto that fun stuff, I'll say this is me. My name is Jason Medwood. I'm the manager of DevFacto's data and analytics practice. I've been doing this data thing for, I've now just started saying 20 plus years. That covers it. We don't need to get more specific than that. I've lived through a lot of different phases in the data space. I did a lot of classical data warehousing using Kimball star schema, built lots of ETL jobs, built lots of data visualizations, and worked with organizations to come up with strategies about how to use these tools, how to enable these capabilities in the most effective way possible. It's because of all this stuff I've seen. I've seen what works, I've seen where the challenges are, and sometimes it was starting to feel like the challenges are kind of overwhelming us. But we have and something's got me excited now, so that's why I'm really excited to be able to share it with you today. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to talk about, well, why do we have to manage data in the first place? What do you mean by that? It's a big area. You can't cover that in a half hour. What are we actually talking about here? So I'm just going to set the scene a little bit, and then we're going to talk about current challenges, like why we kind of know there's some areas for improvement. We can do a better job with this. I want to dig in a little bit about where those particular areas are. And then talk about what pain are we feeling in our organization because of these challenges? How is it negatively affecting us? Why are we motivated right now today? Why are we on a webinar to talk about a way to modernize where we want to do it better? So we want to get specific about where this pain is. And then I'll introduce what data virtualization, some of the concepts around what it is, how Denodo has instantiated it in their platform, and what an approach could look like. How would we use this? How do we use this technology? Why does it address some of the challenges we talked about earlier? Why are we excited to think that this is an important tool in the toolkit that's really actually going to start moving us forward to meeting these challenges? And I'm going to finish off with there's big implications here in the ideas that we're going to be talking about today. So how do we start? How do we approach? Do you have any kind of rules of thumb or best practices we can kind of use as we start thinking about how to apply this to our organization? So that's a lot to talk about in roughly half an hour. So we got to get to it. Again, if you have a question, please throw it in chat. We're going to have some time at the end, or just save it to the end, and we can deal with the questions then. Why do we have to manage data? Well, I'm sure some of these basic concepts are likely familiar to you. If you've tried to work with your organization's data in any way, you realize that the fact that the organization possesses this data isn't enough. I know there's great data here. I know these systems contain a lot of insights potentially, but it's difficult to get my hands on it. I can't find where this stuff is. I don't know where to start looking. I don't know how to get it, even if I knew where it was. It's effectively, there's all these boxes in the Raiders of the Lost Ark warehouse at the end of the movie, all these crates, it's effectively gone. We have it, but we can't find it. We can't use it. We can't use it. We need to make it usable. We need to do things to our data to translate it from the record of operational activity into insights. That's a big leap. How do we do that? If we've learned nothing, if we've learned nothing else, we do know we have to do that. We have to engage in activity that takes this data, locates it, gets our hands on it, brings it together, puts it in a form that's usable to people who are empowered to gain insights and make decisions to drive the organization. All of that is a way to say for us to realize value from this data, the classic turning data into information. We have to do a lot of work to get from the cardboard box to the insight that leads us to change the way we do our work, to change the way our organization runs, to let us be more efficient, to let us be more on target with our customers, to let us be generate more value. drive efficiencies, measure our effectiveness. There's a whole constellation of ways we would like to be able to use our data if only we could get our hands on it. Well, what do you mean get our hands on it? We've been working on this for a long time. Like you just said, you've been doing this for 20 years, and well, you're right. I was on a data warehouse team. We've been getting our hands on data and bringing it together and trying to meet business needs. Isn't this a solved problem? Haven't we figured this out already? Well, no, we haven't. Those approaches that we used to take could work in certain situations, but they were slow, they were expensive. My very first data warehouse project, it was a successful one. We started from zero and went to delivery, we went to production, and we were producing valuable things, but no one at the organization saw anything at all until we were nearly a year into the effort. Those days are past. No one is willing to invest that time anymore. We need answers more quickly. Why? The data volumes are exploding. This thing, like the internet came around. There's so many more ways we can get information and get data. It's coming at us in far more forms than it ever did. It's coming at us far faster than it ever did. That's all sort of a truism these days. We kind of know that. Like we're kind of aware that data management is facing the challenge of the exploding data volumes. You always hear these, by the year 2030, we'll have whatever, 10 times as much data as we have today, whatever those numbers are. We're kind of aware of that. But to me, what goes along with that, and is actually the more interesting point to me, is data consumer expectations. Our organizations, back in the day, this stuff was an arcane art. You needed dedicated teams that had very specialized knowledge to be able to use these complicated tools to pull the data together and create these reports. If a field was missing, too bad. It took months, but that's the best we could do. Now we recognize I need real-time answers. I need to be able to get my hands on data quickly and gain my insights. I need to be able to access not only relational data that I have on a server in my organization, but I need to supplement it. We're starting to move things to the cloud. I need that as well. There are third-party data sources that could enrich the insights I'm looking for. I need to be able to get my hands on that as well. And I need this fast. The months before I see anything doesn't cut it anymore. So we're facing, as data practitioners, we're facing this now from both sides. One, the ecosystem, the overall data landscape is fast and furious, and it's changing and it's growing. And at the end, the people who we're trying to service, they're getting more and more specific. They're savvy these days. They know what they want, and they know what a reasonable expectation is in terms of being able to get answers. We're going to have to meet this need, and our current data management approaches aren't cutting it. Wherever you sit in this spectrum, whatever role you're playing at your organization, I think you probably agree this need is recognized. We all have that sense that we need to do something different. We need to improve the way we tackle these problems. It's not like we haven't been doing things. Like I've been doing this a while, and I've seen it get better. I remember working with reporting tools that were they were complicated and they didn't do very much. Nowadays, we have Power BI, we have Tableau, we have data visualization reports, and they do a lot. And you can get some very nice reports together very quickly, and it gives you some fairly decent ways to hack and slash and get your data stitched together. That's an improvement. But at the end of the day, we'll talk a little bit about this. That in itself is not sufficient. We're pushing the challenge of bringing this data together. We're placing the burden of doing that work on the people who are supposed to be doing the analysis. That's already a full-time job. We're making them do stitching. We're making them do this ad hoc manual data access, and it's not sustainable. Data lakes have come around. We now have these vast repositories where we can co-locate data from across the organization. That was one piece of the puzzle. It does change the way we think about staging, if you're familiar with classical data warehousing. But again, it's still the main challenge still isn't being met. We're telling our people who are needing to consume this data and build reports and build machine learning models, hey, you only have to go to the data lake to get what you need. But then, okay, I've done that, but that was step one. What about steps 2 through N, where I still need to do my analysis? I still need to figure out what this column means. I still need to figure out, am I doing this the right way? I'm still trying to figure out, well, okay, I've got 90% of what I need, but where's the other 10% coming from? I mentioned machine learning models. We have advanced analytics. The way we use data today is far more sophisticated than it was 10, 20 years ago. We can do amazing things with data right now. So that just, again, that's a use, that's a consumption method. The results are amazing, but the things that underpin that are still the same as the most basic Crystal report was. We need to be able to get our hands on the data. We need to be able to access it securely. We need to be able to bring it together. We need to be able to understand it and trust it. All our advanced tools on the consumption side don't really help fundamentally with that. Cloud platforms, that's just making, we're easing the pain of managing our data, at least in terms of we don't have to rely as heavily on on-premises servers. We're having to worry about updating, patching software, all that kind of thing. There's a lot more flexibility, and the tools come really when you come down to it. A lot of these tools are easier than ever to use, but these are modern tools, these are modern approaches, but it doesn't really address the challenges we've been talking about, or are about to dig into here. They still remain. These are pieces of the puzzle, but it's really we're not kind of pulling it together enough yet. I've been describing situations, and this is sort of the list of really what we're seeing. Data is difficult to find and work with. But we just outlined there's more places than ever for data to reside, and it resides in more and more different shapes and sizes and technical implementations. It's getting harder and getting less reasonable for our data analysts, our report writers, our data consumers to be able to navigate all this and bring it together themselves. When you push the responsibility onto these people who are at the top of this sort of data structure, there's so much that they count on, and all this responsibility is being foisted on them. And they are responding to particular questions, particular areas of opportunity in the organization. They don't have the holistic view. They're going to do what it takes to answer their questions today. And we're going to have a bunch of people doing the similar kind of work, coming up with slightly different ways to answer the questions. So that results in it's slow. This work is slow across the board. We have most organizations have teams that are dedicated to this kind of work, and they've built data warehouses and they built other kinds of repositories. Often there's a lot of good stuff in these, but with the rising tide of data, it's becoming more and more challenging to use kind of the classical ETL methods to get the data, create specialized connections to it, bring it across, land it, apply our complex transformation models to it to land it in a data vault or a data star schema or whatever it is. That's slow, and they're finding it harder and harder to keep up. Because of this, these data analysts, the questions being asked on them, the insights they're seeking, that hasn't slowed down, that's speeding up. It forces them to go rogue. I'm trying to be a good corporate citizen. I'm going to use the data warehouse as much as I can, but it only has 70% of what I need. I need to address the 30%, and I can't wait to navigate the processes to get something fleshed out in the data warehouse. I need answers now. It's going to take a long time to get the data warehouse updated. I need to do something. What am I going to do? I'm going to go commando. I'm going to figure out, where does this data reside? I'm going to, by hook or by crook, I'm going to get access to it. I'm going to get somebody to give me read-only access to a database copy. I'll bring it all together on my desktop. I'll do the stitching. I'll put it together in Excel. I'll do what it takes to answer my own questions. With customers we've worked with, people get extremely adept at this. I've seen some amazing work. It's backflips, it's impressive acrobatics, but it's so difficult to maintain. An organization will have very low visibility on this kind of activity. It's hard to know what people are up to. We know there are people in marketing or finance who are doing their own things. We know people in the parts area somehow manage to get their own SQL server instantiated and are doing their own extracts. It's getting out of control. We can't keep going this way. It's not sustainable. It's too expensive. It's too slow. We need to do it a better way. We need a new way. We need a new path. We need to simplify this process. This whole thing of people who are trying to answer questions, expecting them to reinvent the wheel every time by starting from first principles of, okay, what ID do I need to use, or who do I talk to gain access to this? We want to abstract that problem away from the people who are trying to do the analysis. We'd also like a way to bring this data together more quickly. Up to now, we pretty much in one way or another have had some form of the classical ETL or ELT model to deal with, where we point automated processes at extracts. We pick the data up and move it somewhere, and we perform whatever transformations we need to turn it into a new form, which we can then service out. We need to be able to somehow speed that up. Because of people going rogue, the sort of analytics function kind of spreading uncontrolled through an organization, inconsistency arises. I don't think you have to think too hard of an example. You've either heard of it or actually lived through it, of stakeholders getting together in an organization. They're bringing their numbers in. It's time to make some decisions and see where we are, where we should go. And the session devolves into arguments about who has the correct number, because we're supposed to ostensibly be talking about the same thing. We're not, because we differ on the number. And it's because analyst A did this processing a certain way and analyst B did it a different way. Very wasteful, very confusing. Worst case, we're using incorrect numbers. We're publishing incorrect numbers. We need to bring consistency to this provisioning, whatever form it's taking. In the data landscape, we need to evolve. Things are moving fast. To stay competitive, we need to keep up to date. We need this data ecosystem, which after all is supposed to be a key asset from which we will derive insights to drive our business forward. This capability needs to be able to move and evolve as we acquire organizations, as our technical platforms shift, as the volume of information we're bringing in increases. We need a way to be able to respond flexibly to these changing conditions. This is why I'm excited. We at DevFacto here are really excited about data virtualization. This is a concept where all of these challenges we've been talking about, this gives us a viable path forward to start addressing these challenges. And we're going to spend sort of the rest of our time here talking about why this is a concept we want to start baking into how we approach thinking about data management at our organization. Let's really quickly define our terms. What are we talking about with data virtualization? Fundamentally, we're talking about separating the technical details and location and form of data from its consumption. The people who want to perform analysis or consume a report, we want to isolate them from the nitty-gritty details of this data set sits on this server with this IP address, and it's a relational database, and we want to join it with a folder full of Excel files, which is in this network path, and we want to add a web service that's located here, and it's a REST API. We want our data analysts to not have to worry about that every time they go to start answering questions. We would like to separate and have all that connectivity, all that structure, all that formatting business taken care of somewhere else, and give us a different starting point for our analysis. We're talking about decoupling data access. We're talking about removing that concern from everybody who tries to deal with data and focusing it in one place where we can address it in a robust, fulsome, consistent way. We're going to see right away here as we talk a little bit about what data virtualized as realized by the Denodo platform. When we start solutioning in there, we're going to be seeing it yields many benefits that are going to help us start checking off the boxes of being able to do this faster, being able to be flexible, being able to promote reuse. All this stems from the fact that because of the paradigm we're able to use in terms of the way we consume the data, we're going to be able to have decoupled access, and our logic can be loosely coupled, in which the data is brought together, enhanced, enriched. And by the time we get to the consumption layer, we know what our dependencies are, but they are removed from the underlying location, structure, format of the data. We're going to see that very clearly on the next slide here. At the end of the day, we call this data virtualization because our starting point is now data. When I come into Denodo and I want to build a new Power BI report and I want to put some data together, I'm coming at it and I'm working with data sets right from the beginning. Where these come from, I can find out. There's lineage, there's information, I can understand that, but I don't have to care. If I have access to the data sets I need within as provisioned by Denodo, I can start working with them. I don't need to worry about where it sits, whether it's a relational database or it's a flat file or it's a REST API or it's a big data, whatever it is. I'm just working with data. The people who care about data can focus on data. That's basically the essence of what data virtualization enables. There's a lot of detail on this slide, so I just want to really quickly talk through a flow here. What we're talking about is Denodo's platform sitting in between you and the data. The data in the bottom, the green box there, it sits in its multi-varied forms: cloud and on-prem, operational systems, data warehouses, cloud platforms, big data implementations, web services, unstructured data, flat files, wherever it is, whatever it is, wherever it is, we use Denodo to connect to it. And by connecting to it, there's a specific way we connect, and it's consistent across all of these data sets. Denodo takes care of those niggly details about what's the difference between connecting to a Word document versus a CLS versus a web interface versus a relational database. If that is handled, it lets us focus much more quickly on, well, now what is this data telling us? What do we need to do to put it together? How do we tailor make solutions for our consumers, which are represented in the blue box up top? We have the range of data consumers there. The different species of data consumer is rapidly increasing. We have it used to be operational report consumers, pretty much it. Now we have people who want to consume dashboards in real time. We have people who are data scientists and they want their pipelines of rich flowing data coming in very quickly so that they can populate their machine learning models. We have Power BI developers who want a fighting chance to be able to build clean data models in Power BI and be able to create and maintain a wide range of consistent data visualization reports. That's you want to code in R and Python, and you want whatever use you have. What Denodo lets you do is all of these consumers can be serviced through one platform. When a data scientist needs data, they come to Denodo. When a Power BI report author needs data, they come to Denodo. Denodo's mantra to think about how to use this platform is you connect to it, you combine the data within the platform and tailor specific views for specific uses, and you just enable that consumption. There is a lot to talk about here. Many lectures could be delivered about each of these boxes. I just want to quickly highlight a couple of them. Bringing order and consistency to our data access through a platform like this means security and data privacy is maintainable, is manageable from one central location. We're going to be able to control users' access to all of the data sets from one place. No more of this individual people having individual access to individual databases or network folder shares. They have Denodo. Through role-based access, they are granted access to certain sets of data, and that's that. We have not obscured, but we have isolated or decoupled, worrying about the lower level implications of that or the lower level implementation of that from a data consumer. I'm a data consumer. I want to consume data in Denodo. I go to the data catalog and I see immediately what data sets do I have access to. I can search them. We can tag them with rich metadata to make it very easy for people to understand what they're looking at, what they're looking for. With row and column level, robust row and column level filtering, we can make sure the exact data that the exact person needs is readily available to them. We're going to talk a little bit more, some of the implications we can tease out of this approach of having this consistent way to think about where the data comes from and to make sure that the right thing is available to the right user at the right time. I mentioned views, so I just want to take a really quick, just spend a couple minutes here to talk about what it kind of looks like under the covers within Denodo when we talk about business solutioning in the platform. At the bottom, we can see an example of varied data sources. We have a number of different species and types of data. We have a CRM database, we have an ERP system implemented in SQL Server, we have some NoSQL, we have a web service providing incident data, we have our old legacy data warehouse, we get invoicing data from a web service. Fundamentally, what our approach is using Denodo is to instantiate connections to all these different data sources. So Denodo takes care of the details. We point the platform at the CRM, at the ERP. It's very easy to connect to these, whatever they support countless numbers of different formats and types of data structures. From there, we generate something called a base view. And these you can think of as being, this is the fundamental physical level of the data. You can think of it as table views. In this example, we can see we're deriving base views for client, address, client type, and these will often live in specific tables in the underlying systems. But here's where the paradigm, here's where the power kicks in. We can start bringing these views together into other views. So within the Denodo platform, we can quickly get the client address, client type, and company views, the bottom left there, pulled together in something called a customer view. This lets us start treating these not as individual tables that we need to figure out, but now as a customer object we've been able to instantiate that can then feed downstream uses. We can see here that from our customer view, we're feeding from the ERP and the CRM. If we add invoicing data derived from a web service, we can combine that into a customer invoicing view. That view can then be tailored, filtered, aggregated, changed to populate subsequent views dependent on it in an application level. And from here, we can feed our specific use cases, Power BI, a data science model, whatever you need to use the data for. The main, you're going to be able to get your specific requirements met within the platform. So you can imagine how something like this can greatly simplify something like your Power BI models. Instead of in Power BI, you have to do all that connecting and bringing together in sort of the flat data models that you have in the Power BI. And that's usually for a specific report. It's tough to reuse it for other reports. And if you want to use a different technical platform, that's even more of a challenge. Here, we're pushing that complexity into a platform that's purpose-built to be able to handle it. So we can see that having this decoupled, layered approach to construction of views, it enables very quick bringing together of data in a way that's isolating you from the details of the underlying implementation. Why are we excited about that? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the more exciting ones is it enables flexibility now. If we had to make a change to the CRM database, see where we're replatforming, we're going to move that to the cloud. With this type of implementation, we don't have to worry about. We do have to worry about it, but we can see what the downstream dependencies are. We have taken the methodology of instantiating base views and then deriving views from those. If we replatform, we move the CRM database to the cloud, we have to update our base views, but then in principle, the downstream is isolated from that. The customer view knows it needs to access the client address, client type, and company views, but it doesn't see past those. It doesn't know where those come from. It doesn't care where those come from. If we update the base views, the downstream is not disturbed. We don't have to repoint a Power BI report that was using Denodo as its source. If we change an underlying data source, the decoupling has protected those downstream consumers from needing to know that something in the physical implementation changed. This opens up a very powerful way. There are many uses across the board. We're going to get into some of these example uses right now. You can imagine a situation where a data user, a data consumer needs to answer a fairly complicated question. They need a number of data points. They find that they can get 70% of the way based on information in the data warehouse, but there's a gap and they need their answer pretty quick here, and waiting for the data warehouse to be updated isn't feasible. We need to figure it out somehow. So instead of putting the burden of all of that provisioning effort on that analyst to figure out where this other data lives, how to get access to it, how to stitch it together on the desktop, they can engage the Denodo team, and they now have this powerful way to rapidly get the data connected, stand up some views, test out an approach to getting the numbers and the numbers they need, the information they desire, and being able to more iterate and come to a solution that will work. This is not a silver bullet. We're not talking about we throw out all of our previous data solutioning in favor of Denodo. Denodo plugs in and lets you more efficiently utilize what you have and enhance it. In this example, you can imagine a case where we have supplemented, we've got our missing 20–30% of the data brought in through Denodo views, and then you can make a decision. This is our production solution. It's working. We are connecting to the source data. We have vetted the views. It's trusted. These numbers are correct. there may be situations where we want to leave it like that. This is part of our production solution environment. If there was a case to be made where actually now it does belong in the data warehouse, we do need to historize this data. We need to track changes over time. We do need to land these models in a database. We now have an extremely robust set of requirements for our data warehouse team. We know all the data points we need. We know we've vetted the join logic and the aggregating logic and whatever measures we've created. We've got all that proven out. And as that gets built out in the data warehouse, when the day comes that that data is available, we can easily pivot in Denodo and leaving those downstream consumers unaffected. I've mentioned it enables this rapid prototyping, iterative approach because we don't have to wait for ETL, classical ETL pipelines to be built up. We can get our hands on data, start working with it, and iterate our way to a good solution. I talked about the cloud migration example, where a decoupled approach to data sources means those data sources underlying their location can change without disturbing the downstream. Modernizing ETL, similarly. There's a lot of places where you could plug Denodo into your existing ETL infrastructure to ease staging, to simplify some of the transformation logic that you're performing on your way into the models. Denodo is not a replacement for classical data warehouse or ETL processes. It's a supplement. It's an offering of a way to improve, enhance, make those paradigms easier to work in, and to offer alternatives. Not everything. If we can get our question through real-time data access from a number of data sources as brought together in Denodo, not everything needs to be the classical ETL model. We still need that when we historize in our other use cases. This is an expanding of capability, not of a rip and replace. With these view layers, again, we can start having the concept of, we get to a certain point where we've instantiated business level objects. This is our view of member. This is our view of product. This is our view of facility, whatever it is. We've got a certain level of trusted, vetted, integrated data instantiated in Denodo that we can then turn loose and start supporting a self-serve capability that now has a fighting chance of being successful. Again, we have a consistent integrated starting point, and we can let our analysts focus on analyzing. All the while, we're keeping our security teams happy. We're able to have a consistent way to have access to our data. We are being able to track the usage. We're being able to consistently implement our security policies. I've seen that with customers we've worked with, where actually that became the most exciting thing in the Denodo rollout, was its implications for a common security model rollout. These are exciting possibilities, and we're kind of bring it back to some of the challenges we were talking about. So what is this? What kind of impact does this have, this approach on data management? So we talked about this is easing the data connectivity challenges through its decoupling approach. As part of the platform in the data catalog, when as a data consumer you're using a view or a set of views for your analytical purposes, it's very easy to understand where these views came from. I'm isolated, I'm decoupled from it, but it's not invisible to me. I can easily see graphically, oh, okay, this view depends on these 3 underlying views, which in turn depends on these 7 underlying views, which in turn is being fed from these root level base views from these 6 different operational systems. Oh, it's a mix of cloud, and all there's this. So you can see that. That's documentable now. It's easily available, and that is a key way to continue to develop trust in the data that you're provisioning. Centralized security monitoring, we've mentioned. Having everybody accessing data in the same way from the same location really makes understanding what's happening at an enterprise level much more easy. I've talked more than once now about the simplified downstream dependencies, and really at the end of the day, we're opening new options. We're allowing other approaches to getting data in the hands of people, getting insights into the hands of people. We have flexibility in a way that we didn't have before, and that's not just in terms of us being able to deal with the volume problem, the velocity problem, the variety problem. The solution itself is flexible. So Denodo has a concept of data center of gravity, where wherever you are in the data journey in terms of on-premises data versus cloud data, Denodo is equally at home on both, and you can establish nodes for Denodo both on-prem and in the cloud, multi-location. All of that is supported, built in. You don't, again, we're decoupled from that. I don't care where it is. Denodo figures out which node to ask for what piece of data. As your organization evolves, you're able to make your Denodo implementation follow right along. If your data center gravity is primarily on-prem, we've started to the cloud, we have a couple systems up there, but most of our stuff is still on-prem, then your Denodo implementation will likely be focused on-prem. And as it's moving to the cloud, the implementation can follow right along. Why is this valuable? You know, we were talking about our challenges and we're excited. Why are we excited about this? Well, we're kind of starting to tick the boxes here of the challenges we're facing. We're able to drive effective data usage. We have better visibility. We have tools to do this more quickly. We can work as an organization. It's not just the burden of one team or individual roles. We're able to get a better view on what the organization's priorities and challenges are for what they want to do with the data, and being able to implement it in a transparent, flexible, decoupled way. One of the benefits of this is as we get our hands on more and more data and you put it to more and more uses, data quality issues may start presenting themselves. Again, we can use this approach to start dealing with data quality. We can understand it, we can generate reports, we can stand up processes to feed into our data quality at an organizational level and affect changes in operational systems, and then being able to track this improving data quality. Identifying data entry behaviors that are challenging, identifying technical challenges. As we get these resolved, we can see the results, and it's easily reportable if we take this data virtualization approach. Again, organizations, we understand, we want our data to be governed. Why? Because we want it trusted, we want it secure, we want it useful. This is a key way to make that possible, because it's enabling the tools. We're getting the tools in our hands now to approach making it secured, making it trusted, promoting reuse, being able to monitor and assist and support proper use within our organization of our data. We're finally getting the tools in our hands to be able to do this in a really boots on the ground effective way. We're going to see an increase in the quality and velocity of the reporting we're going to be able to do. If we can get our hands on the data more quickly, if our given data analyst, their starting point is not stitching things together, but already having views that are based on views, which bring these key pieces together for us, they're going to get to analysis more quickly. They're going to have more time to do more effective analysis, and we're going to just see the concomitant result of we're going to be able to do more. It'll be more consistent. It'll be more on point. It'll be better. And we talked about this whole paradigm being based on being able to adapt, to evolve, to change. It's loosely coupled. As our ecosystem changes, we can keep up with it. We have a chance now to deal with this velocity and variety challenge. So we have these exciting opportunities for data management. What does this mean to the organization? So everybody, this is what we want. We want to be able to turn this seething mass of data into insight. And this is a path for us to do it in a reduced time, with improved visibility, with improved governance. And this is a way to keep us focused on, as we work with our data, we start to see us transitioning from a backward looking, what happened, what were the results from last month, to a greater understanding of what's happening now, through to an understanding of what's driving that, and then working through a data maturity path to predictive, to prescriptive analytics, where we understand what the key movers are in our business, what the key elements are, when we see results coming out, what that means, being able to actually stand up and realize what the whole goal of this has been for a long time, which is we grow in data maturity, we utilize our data to more and more effective uses, we drive decision making, we arm our businesses with more and more facts and insights and lets us make better decisions going forward. This, I said it before, I'll say it again. This isn't a silver bullet. This is a really important technical platform that enables an approach that really gives us, it helps us glue these pieces together. And it's not just a technical implementation. We don't just buy a Denodo license, set up our environment, and we're done. The lights are on, we have Denodo, problem solved. They're tools, and we have to understand how to use these tools. And that means a mindset change. It means a new way of coming together and working on this as an organization, and it means developing that culture of data. If everybody's accessing their data through a similar means, through a similar platform, and they're working with it, building their views, consuming it in similar ways, that's a very practical way to get people speaking the same language, getting consistent on their approaches, being able to collaborate and share and really drive out that culture of data. Culture of data is a very nice concept, but we're finally, this is a really practical way to start turning that into reality. This all sounds great, but how do you start? We're talking about mindset change. We're talking about evolution. We're talking about all these things. We at DevFacto, we're very excited to be working in this space. So I would say partner with us, partner with a professional services organization. You want a partner that has had experience in this space, has lessons learned from previous experience, and has spent a long time thinking about and working on how to make tools like this, platforms like this, really have an impact on your organization to move you forward on the data journey. Through our experience, we definitely see that for these kinds of partnerships to be successful, they need to be iterative. We need to take an agile approach. We need to utilize the fact that we can get our hands on data quickly and start shaping it, start realizing solutions quickly, and then working as one team, business and IT, with the partner together, one group, one team that is able to see end to end what we should be doing, setting the priorities, setting the methodologies, and iteratively getting to the solution. This is injecting something new into the ecosystem. This isn't a rip out and replace. Denodo lets you leverage what you already have. Utilize your data warehouse, utilize your data stores, iteratively improve these processes that you currently have by taking this non-invasive approach. And because we can do this non-invasively and we can do it iteratively, we can finally be driven by business value. We're not going to implement abstract models with the idea that it'll be of use to somebody somewhere. We can stay focused on what are the challenges today, what are the answers today, and work backwards down into the stack to get the data pulled together that we need. I can talk about this all day, but I won't. I want to leave at least a couple minutes for questions. So thanks very much. Please reach out. I've covered a lot of ground here. There's a lot that we can dig into and get specific about, but I'd love to keep the conversation going. So please reach out. You can go to defacto.com for contact information, or just send me an email, jason.medwood@defacto.com. So I've said a lot, and I'd like to know if any of you have any questions in the remaining minutes here. And I see there's something in chat.
Yeah, I haven't seen a ton of questions in chat, but there have been a couple questions here. One was, does adding additional views slow things down?
Oh, okay. So yes, I talk quickly through certain things. So there's the whole issue of performance. I wasn't able to touch on that at all. Denodo has a very powerful optimizer that takes the queries you're asking, the requests you're asking, and turning it into most efficient way to get the answer pulled together. Denodo does all that work for you. When we're structuring these view layers, this is purely for humans, for us to be able to sort out what each layer is doing and be able to keep track of where all this processing happens. It makes us be able to take a modular, simplified version. When it comes to actually executing the request, the optimizer just it knows what you're asking. All of that gets collapsed into an internal representation. The views are for us. There is no impact on the performance. So we can use the view layers to establish logical structures that make our solution incomprehensible and maintainable.
Awesome. Okay. Another question coming through here. When I want to continue on with more traditional data methods like data warehousing and data lakes, et cetera.
Oh, yeah. I kind of mentioned that a little bit before. So absolutely, this isn't a one size, but there is no one size fits all. There is a use case where there are use cases where you will continue to need a data warehouse, particularly around historizing data, where operational systems, we're using Denodo to pull real-time access, real-time insight. That is great for that's the kind of insight we need. But there are cases where we need to track changes over time. That's not available in the operational system. We need to land this data and track changes through a more traditional, slowly changing dimension, something like that. And absolutely, data warehouses will continue to serve that role. The exciting thing is that we will continue to have data warehouses, but it doesn't have to be everything in the data warehouse. That can be one tool, one area that of capability, but we can expand that now, and questions better served, more rapidly served through other means. We now have a way to get those.
Fantastic. Another question. When you access operational sources, are you able to throttle how hard Denodo hits them?
Yep. Yes. We could, I didn't get into the details, but Denodo does some very interesting, it has a very flexible way in which it puts its requests in to the underlying source systems. And sometimes that makes sysadmins or system administrators a bit nervous. Like, wait a minute, you're going to be pushing all this work onto my system. I've got SLAs to meet. There are situations where you may not want to hit underlying source systems that hard. There are a number of different options. One of them is you can cache data. You can have Denodo as a platform go out, get data, and store it in a cache, and automatically keep that cache up to date. We can also have real-time access, but throttle it. And certain times of day, certain business areas, you can hit only up to this level. Like there are levers you can pull to control the frequency and how hard Denodo is hitting the underlying data sources. And you can see there's full visibility on what that activity looks like. You can see all of that, and then you can make operational adjustments as you're able to, or be more fine-grained about how you've configured Denodo to utilize the underlying sources.
Okay, fantastic. There's a few more questions in here. Just another call. If you do have questions, or if any of these answers have, spawned more questions in your brain, feel free to drop them in. We've got a couple more here. Can I use this technique with my existing analytic tools?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a wide range, sort of from the source side. There's a huge range of platforms that are supported, and on the tooling side, on the consumption side, very wide range. So that has been part of the work that we've done with clients, where one of the goals was to take existing solutioning, existing reports, and repoint them, and to use Denodo as a data source. So you have a lot of flexibility in how you want to implement that. A recent one was really a mixture of building out brand new reports, because suddenly we had access to data that we didn't have access to, and at the same time having a stream of work that started working through the backlog of existing Power BI reports, and we can start simplifying those models, start provisioning that data through Denodo. And because of this decoupled iterative approach, it's controlled, and we've reduced the risk of breaking things, because we can roll back, we can reconsider, we can do. So yeah, that type of approach absolutely is supported.
Okay, fantastic. Unless somebody zips in with a last minute question, the last one we have on the board is, when you connect data sources, is it read only, or can we write as well? Oh,
yes. So there may be, depending on your use case, there could be, yes, write is supported. If you are utilizing Denodo as part of your operational systems, where maybe consumers, or maybe a front-end web app is actually using Denodo as its data source, and then the underlying data implementation is separate from that, you have screens where users are entering data, then absolutely, yes, that would be a case where you would want to enable the write access, and you would be able to write your data through the Denodo connection as well.
Fantastic. Okay, Jason, great work. I think I don't see any more questions. So I think you're on the home stretch here to close it out.
Great. Thanks everybody for coming to the talk. We went a little bit long here, but there is a lot to talk about. So absolutely reach out if you have any further, if you have some questions, you want to talk shop about it. This is a very exciting area. Thanks again for attending, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.